Okay, very limited time. Chad's already commenting in text and on the stream, and I'm late. I don't know. I might not even have an hour this morning, so I'll try to shut up faster than I normally do and open it up to play, to pay to play with PVK with me. You don't have to pay to play with me. Oh, listen, I gotta change the banner. Oh, I gotta change the style. No, what do I need to change? Media assets. There we go. Let's get the little Lukey up in the corner. Thank you, Kalepa, for making my little icon. See? Woo, 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 woo. House of Woo. What's up? I was here before you. I'm the Woo Man. Okay? There's a lot of TLC lore wrapped up in that because I used to say I'm more feminine than the women that I know and more masculine than the men that I know. And also I self-identify as emotionally being a female. But it's all confusing. I'm just a strange person. But this is not the House of Woo in the sense that it is as explicitly evangelically prayerful as Mark Parker and Ron Copperman run their show, which is great. I love it. The diversity is fantastic. But it is very like, what is it? It's very wooey in the sense that it is not linear. It's circular. It's Notes from the Tilt-A-Whirl, one of the books that most influenced me. And that's one of those books that I think about when I had the stream about redeeming the despirited breath of the written word and Socrates' lament of the written word, that it would make us forget. But here's the thing about the reality, I think, of the incarnation and the seeds of the logos is that in everything, even things that are relatively less potent with meaning and power, because that's what I mean by despirited breath, is it's lost a little bit of that word. The written word has lost some of the breath of life that awakens meaning. It's still present in there because anything that is has the potency of becoming what it was meant to be, its very own Whitestone name. So what I just did is a great example of the kind of woo that you will find on my thing. Phlebas, do your homework. Watch my first comeback stream, and you will know whether or not Easter was bad. We'll see, right? The Chinese farmer, was it bad? We'll see. Okay, this is what Chad texted me privately, but he also made it here. Not more masculine than my sister. Okay, let's fulfill the title. Let's go there, and then we'll see if we can open this up or not, or what's going on. Because, Chad, if you lived here, you could maybe do my tile, but you don't, and so I have another tile guy coming, and I've talked to him about using too much of the light track. I don't particularly like being the general contractor admin person of construction projects. It feels like spinning plates, and I already feel like I'm spinning plates. So then I feel like I'm spinning plates over here, and then I'm spinning plates over here. And there's too many plates, and we're waiting for the crash, you know? Before I fulfill on the title, what does Grimm call it? Doomer. Doomies. Our Jonathan Demir is here. I want to give a little bit of a what did I used to call it? I used to have a short-lived series on Voxer with the original Voxer crew. Voxer was the original app that we connected with I guess it was after Bridges of Meaning. So quick, this little corner history lesson. There were the original randos who started talking amongst themselves because PVK was too busy, and we all became friends. The original person-centric nature of the TLC. And then we were on Bridges of Meaning. We had a group chat on Bridges of Meaning. And then we made a Voxer chat because I had gotten on the Voxer app, which is like this weird walkie-talkie app it's got problems, but it was all right. Because I was an acquaintance friend with Preston Sprinkle for a while. But we have since stopped talking because Preston's too cool, too busy for me. But also, like, I mean, there's too many things. It's like me and my wife talk about Venn diagrams of overlapping relations, and you have to have a certain number of overlapping bubbles with someone in order to participate with them, in order to have relation with them. Otherwise, that's probably what takes you from the realm of stranger to acquaintance to friend. Stranger is foreshadowing for a fulfilling of the title and of talking about Ethan and Henry. And Preston and I just didn't have that. We met through Twitter, and we had, I mean, it was mainly intellectual. It was mainly kind of metagelical, which was our interest, and we would chat about things, and that's what got us on Voxer. And then the group over time, I don't know, that was like, to me, that was probably the core of where like a lot of the TLC work was being done for me, was in that group chat. I mean, I would do a lot of this. That was the precursor to my streaming. And then Jacob started the Just Chattings, and then I started doing the same thing that I used to do on Voxer on stream. And I would just send the group my thoughts of the day. It would be stuff like this. It wasn't live because I'm just like recording the audio. You could do it, what's the word? Co-synchronously, is that a word? You could do it at the same time. You could be recording messages at the same time. Voxer was kind of a weird app. And then that group just got too big. It was a body with a boundary that had a semi-permeable membrane, because all bodies have boundaries. They have walls, and they are selectively open, right? It's like the cell wall in a biological cell. You let some things in. Is it endocytosis and exocytosis? And then you excrete certain things. Your own human body does that. You bring certain things in, air, food, and you excrete certain things, urine and poop. And your skin absorbs and excretes sweat and oils and all that. The boundaries. This is something we talked a lot about in the corner. Where do I begin and where do I end? And this is where philosophical materialism has problems, or the initial thought that came in my mind is like dumb. The cells in your body. What's the ship that they talk about all the time? The old philosophical ship. I can't think of the name of it. You physically change all the boards in a ship, but then is it the same ship? And so that gets into like, what is a spirit? What makes something what it is? An institution over time could change all the persons and even the buildings that are in the institution, but yet you consider it the same institution. You think of that largely like America, the Catholic Church, whatever. We're still on this physical land, but the land the atoms that make up the land has changed and moved, and it's all flowing, but it's just at what rate? And then that gets into questions of time, but your body's the same thing. All the cells that are making up my body right now are different than the cells that were in my body when I was a baby. And I grow and change and evolve, and it's in and it's out. And a lot of that depends on the rate of time that we're looking at these things and analyzing these things. So the body of Voxer. We're circling back. Notes from a tilt-a-whirl. Let's do it. The body that was Voxer just became irrelevant to me. Relevance realization. It fell out of my relevance realization because there were strangers, again, foreshadowing, that were brought in. This is how my mind works. Okay? It's all one thing. It's many things and it's one thing. There were people that were brought in because initially we thought, like, this is fun. This is great. It was like American immigration. We were just like, we're all immigrants. We were immigrants at one time. Let's just bring in all the immigrants to the body. But what happened is, like, we brought in a bunch of immigrants from all over, and then all of a sudden the culture changed. Again, these are all patterns that work at many different levels. And I was just like, and this is a culture I don't recognize, and I don't know these people, and it's not that I have anything against them. I'm sure they're great people, but again, it's the overlapping Venn diagram. It's just like, I don't know you from Adam, except that you're connected to this person and this person and this person. I think it was the last person that came in. I don't even remember their name because it was primarily the initial group that started from the Bridges of Meaning group. So it was like Sherry and myself and Sarah and Sam initially was in there, and then we added Nate because Nate came later, and who all was in the group, I don't even know. Basically, it's the same as what, like, the Signal group is. The whole thing grew and changed and evolved, and then Abby was in there, and Abby is kind of adjacent to this little corner in Grail country, and she pops in and pops out a little bit. She's wonderful. And then she added a friend who I just didn't know, and then ended up talking a lot. And I was just like, I don't have time to follow all your things because I can't. It's too much. Like, this is a lot, and I have children and a wife, and my poor wife, thank God, she's a 9 on the Enneagram, Luke Bingo Enneagram, and she is as Pete Holmes likes to say, she is a there you are versus a look at me. And so all of the self-centeredness and self-absorbedness, perhaps, that I bring to the relationship and to the family, and that also a lot of my children and progeny have, partially because they're children, partially because they're related to me, partially because they're humans. My wife pretty graciously absorbs all of that until she gets overwhelmed. Okay, anyhow, circling back, it became too much, and we moved on. I'm losing the threads. Jess, oh, you guys, yes, Cal, you guys are telling me who was all in here. Chad got added too, but then Chad was just like, this is too much, I'm leaving. Dave, thank you. Dave W. Dave W is a deep cut for the TLC. Dave W's been around forever. He's an OG, but he's never had a published rando. He is very introverted. He's a very shy guy. And not shy, I don't know. He doesn't need to be seen, and he doesn't want to be seen publicly like this. But Dave is excellent. Dave was been around forever in the group. Yeah, thank you for sharing all the people that are in the group, because I forget. I mean, and then I don't name them. Yeah, how could I forget Jess? Jess is one of my favorite people in the corner. And so that became too big, and so I lost the thread. And then I stopped doing that. There is a Signal chat, but then I stopped doing group chats because it's just too much. You can't keep up with it all. But I've always liked audio things. I mean, people that know me know that I like audio things because within my hierarchy of the communicative word, I suppose, what I think is most potent with the logos, let's say that, with the logi, is in person, infleshed, within a physical body, in space and time, speaking with another person. That kind of presence holds the deepest communion or presence, real presence, let's say that. And then there's video chat like this through the technology of Zoom or StreamYard or YouTube. And then there's audio, which you can do through audio apps like Signal or Voxer or voice chats on the Bridges of Meaning. And then there's the written word. And again, all of these things hold the fullness, the potential of the fullness of the Logos. But I would say, because the Spirit moves where it will manifest anywhere. That's Christ, the eternal Tao. But I would say, as a rule, and the exception proves the rule, that it is easier to misunderstand people as you move down this hierarchy of communicative mediums. So anyhow, I stopped doing that, started doing this. I don't remember why I started going through the history of this. Why was that? I don't remember. Anyhow, so I'm just going to drop that thread because I forgot it. I blew it. So I watched, because I don't have that much time, I'm going to open this up. So I watched, because I was referenced by this old Ethan Cogny guy. Let's pull it up. Let's pull it up, kiddos. Let's see what we got here. This cat, share present, share screen. This guy, the stranger, game show. Here we go. Oh, I need to pin my thing, but not yet. Okay. See this? Ethan has a channel. Ethan Cogny? Is it the C is silent. Hogney? And he's done a few videos here. I haven't seen his old stuff, as you can see. This is just like, this one is like, I just like maybe put my mouse over it, which is why you can show that. But I saw this guy. Ethan also does this all the time in his streams, which is great. He just does this. No, this way. He tilts his head. And he has this, he furrows his brow, and he has this look where he does this. He's always got his head. Does he have a crink in his neck? What's going on? You know, everybody's got their own little things they do. I touch my face a lot. Anyhow, he had this conversation with Henry because he messaged me a while.
Okay, so Henry, welcome to The Stranger, a game show, episode 1, Henry.
There it is. I recommend doing it. I put a post about, this was excellent. I think it's an excellent idea. My wife had the idea once for a podcast, which I think is a great idea, because I often think this. Back to the point of all human beings being just infinitely interesting, is I will often see people in my physical life who just walking around or whatever, or riding a bike or whatever. I have these people that in my neighborhood I see around occasionally, and I think, what's that person's story? You know, like, what is going on with them? Like, they're such an interesting looking person. Like, why do they dress that way? Why are they always walking at this time of day? Where do they live? Where are they from? And I just think, like, what's going on with these people? And my wife had the idea that she was just like, you should just interview these people. You should just go ask them. Just be like, can I ask you a bunch of questions about your life? And I think in this evolving YouTube video kind of world, there are a little bit of these things. Like, I think there's a number of comedians who have shows like that are like live on the street shows. There's a lot of Andrew Callahan. I think, like, he's Channel 5 News or whatever, used to be all brakes, all pedal, no gas. No, what was it? All gas, no brakes, whatever. He has a show like that. This Ethan show there's this strange, awesome, interesting, emergent culture because the medium and the message, because of the medium and the technology of the internet. There's this new emergent thing that's happening, and that's the nature of mediums. That's the nature of spaces. Different spaces provide the different boundaries where bodies grow and evolve and emerge. Joseph, you're such a great guy, Joseph. We should do, you should come to my house again. Joseph's been to my house. He saw this view with his physical eyes. Can you believe that? Can you believe it? Prairie Power. But we should hang out more. I was driving down by your hometown, the town of your residence at one point, or I was driving by it on 169, 60, something like that, and I was thinking, oh, Joseph's right over there. I should come down there sometime and hang out with you. Because having a local TLC person, my friend Gents is my kind of closest local TLC adjacent person. Mandy, Joseph lives in, well, I don't want to out him where he lives. He lives southwest of the cities. I-69. He lives off of the road of I-69/Minnesota 60. And it's just such to be able, the gift, everything is a gift if you receive it as a gift. To have a gift of somebody who understands any of this, because one of the core things of all the TLC people, I would say this is common of almost all TLC people, is like when they give their randos and they share their witness, their testimony of why they're here, it's just like all these things that we talk about, I didn't have anybody else I could talk to about it, or to the same degree in the level. And that's just true. Like you can, and this is an experience of even doing the in real life conferences and things, is you can just boom, it's just like instant depth and commonality, which is powerful. It can be powerfully positive, and then, as some of the critics say, it can be powerfully it's powerful magic that you maybe need savings throws for. It could really suck you in a weird kind of culty way that my boy MJ likes to always warn us about, or T. Grogan, or whatever. Like religion, hierarchies bind and blind. Religious ritual binds and blinds. You're doing this thing. It's providing you something. There's a reason you're doing it. Some of those things may be good. Some of those things might be bad. It's the nature of the things. Oh, he's outed himself. Joseph has outed himself in the live chat. So, and Joseph has been around for a really long time. He just didn't come out of the lurk until a year ago, yearish, within a year, something. Within the last year, maybe. My sense of time is poor. So that's cool. Anyhow, Joseph, you distracted me from what I was talking about. Let's fulfill on the title, because I've already done this for 22 minutes. So yes, back to Ethan and Henry. I loved it. I mean, I would love for someone who isn't TLC to watch something like Ethan's new show, which I think is a great idea, because it's very related to my wife's idea, The Stranger. Who is the stranger? It's very related to my idea of the non-existent podcast I was going to do, which is kind of what this is anyhow. It's the person podcast, because like personalism is my thing. It's connected to relational ontology. It's also connected to my epistemology, is that I think the best kind of knowing, and the only kind of knowing, I would argue, isn't information-based, it's meaning-based. And it is a riff on St. Paul's knowing as you are known from 1 Corinthians 8. If anyone thinks he knows, knowledge will pass away. Information will pass away. I think that's what St. Paul is saying. What won't pass away is knowing as you are known, the relational knowing. And so, geez, Phlebas, you are like the detective of the TLC. He found a 6-year-old comment of Joseph. Wow. Thank you, McMo. It's the ship of Theseus? That's a callback. Deconstruction. Okay. So this Stranger game show is a great idea. So the broad idea of what Ethan has done, and then this made me think this, is that he wants to just get to know people. So it's kind of like a randos, which Paul was the catalyst for and created out of this whole little corner of the internet. Also, this is Jordan. I watched Jordan Peterson's recent conversation on Rogan. And if you want to know how to do a social network community that's really that's rooted in personalist knowing, which is meaning, and not information, and really cultivates what I think in this medium, again, all the different levels of the potency of the logos. This isn't physical life. It isn't the highest level on my hierarchy, but it doesn't mean that the logos isn't present here and isn't creating real things. And Jordan Peterson, if you want to know how to do it well, Paul Vanderklay's your boy. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. This is how it's done. Can you recreate? Could Jordan Peterson recreate the TLC for the Peterson Academy? I don't know. I'm a little doubtful, but we'll see. Amen. That's funny. Luke gets to the title as quickly as the black preachers get to their final point. Amen. In that sense, can I say that? Can I self-identify as being a black preacher? I don't know. To what degree can you self-identify as things? Because again, right, we can self-identify as other genders, but we haven't quite accepted self-identifying as other races yet, ethnicities. It's coming. It's coming. It's in the pipeline. It's in the oven. It's proofing. I'm working at it, okay, Tayo? Yeah, and time also, time is relative. Also, space and time. Einstein, relativity. This is woo, but it's also science, because everything's interconnected. You know, I mean, what are you going to do? Rachel Dolezal did do it first. So this stranger game show, the basic premise of it, idea of it, is it's a rando. He talks to a rando, because they have to be a rando somehow in this corner, I would think. Henry was the first. Henry, the pure virgin. Henry's one of those like Zoomers, younger, 24, who's just like, how does your mind work that way at 24? It's unbelievable. Like, I feel like I was an absolute moron. And some would argue I still am, until I was like 30. Anyhow, Henry, it was a wonderful conversation. It was so quick. Like the way that you answered those questions, I was like, that's amazing. But maybe it's because I listened to it at 2 times speed. So he asked questions. He solicited questions from a bunch of different corner people. I don't know where all he got the questions. And then he has all these note cards, and he lays them out on the table. And then they're numbered. And then the stranger can pick these questions, these randomly solicited questions, or not randomly, quasi-randomly solicited questions. And so it's randomness on randomness. There's a lot of interesting ideas in this game show. And then it's a rando, and we get to know this person by their the question is just framed as it is. Ethan is pretty hands-off as the host. You know, he's very minorly directing it, but it is stranger-led. This game show, and you get to know the person, and there's many degrees of meta going on in it. It's very metagelical. I'm just a Midwest metagelical. Talking about God and life and other hypotheticals. Look at this. We're even pulling in the big fish. Anyhow, it was a fantastic show. And in watching the show, I started to think, one of the things that's deeply important to me and deeply important to my religious practice, I had this question. This is the question. This is where we're fulfilling on the title, and I'm going to open it up. I was like, one of my biggest areas in my Venn diagram of overlapping relations, one of my, this is openness to experience too. It's a very corner thing. One of my temperamental and ritualistic, liturgical, participatory, one of my big things that I love and why I still participate in TLC is, and it's this quote. I was talking to my boy Jason Schweizer about it, because he was giving me much praise and encouragement and affirmation. Lance Kleber knows it. Jason knows it. I love it. It's one of my love languages, words of affirmation. And he was just saying, praising me a lot, and he was saying your live streams are one of the only things I want to pay attention to in the corner anymore, which is high praise. Nick Cage, Adam Sandberg, high praise. Follow along with the jokes and the references. And I asked him why. Why do you still find my things interesting or whatever? Part of it's because we're friends and he loves me, which is great. And he said, and his answer reminded me of this A.W. Tozer quote, which is one of my, I think a lot in terms of quotes. And there's this Tozer quote, which is so good, which is, to have found God and still pursue him is the soul's paradox of love. Just scorned indeed by the too easily satisfied religionist, T. Grogan, religionist. That was one of the questions in the Henry thing. Bring all the pieces in. Scorned indeed by the too easily satisfied religionist, but justified in happy experience by the children of the burning heart. That quote says a lot of things. It's one of those things that says it all almost. It's like receive with meekness the implanted word. Or like that Maximus Ambiguum quote of like that the word of God, very God, wills always and in all things to instantiate the mystery of his incarnation. Like that's, if you want to say everything propositionally, that has it all. That's what's going on. And Tozer, to have found God and still pursue him is the soul's paradox of love. It's what every relationship is. It's why you say till death do us part with your spouse, because human beings are to be, to quote Paul Vanderklay, human beings are to be loved, not to be used. And you can't serve God and mammon, because you love with God and you mammon if you use. And that's what Machiavellian psychopaths do. And so like with your spouse, they don't want to be used. They don't want you to bow down to a static idol of them. They want you to love them. And what are they? They are a multi-unity. They are a living tradition. They are a body. They are becoming. They are someone who is in process. And so if you love your idea, John Mayer, who do you love? Me or the thought of me, me or the thought of me. This is the title. Keep with it. Human beings are meant to be loved. And so I have realized that Tozer quote, to have found God and still pursue him, further up and further in, these are all the same thing. A deep, deep part of my spiritual identity and the way that I understand reality, and I say this to my wife all the time, one of my favorite things about her is that she is oriented toward growth. She is constantly thinking about ways to better herself, and she is open to change and evolution. I mean, that's repentance, I think. And I just don't, religious persons who are very oriented to repentance and change even, which feels unstable for people. And again, there's wisdom in maybe not too much change, right? That's the arc of orthodoxy versus the speedboats of evangelicalism. But this gets into the metagelical thing of like, I'm very oriented toward change. That's my shamanistic mind. I'm not very concerned. I'm almost never oriented toward our areas of agreement. I'm oriented toward our areas of disagreement, because I'm like, that's where the gold is. That's where the fruit is to be had. And so then I was thinking as I was listening to this stranger podcast, game show, and I was thinking, this metagelical world, this TLC world, I hit my laptop. I don't know. What if, this is the question that I thought of when Henry was talking, because I think he's like a Southern Baptist. He's a Baptist, whatever. And I was thinking like, what if in the future, what if the new crop of Zoomer young people growing up in the church, what if Southern Baptists, my general idea of Southern Baptists is that they're like evangelical fundamentalists, like more or less. They're like close-minded, to be mean, religious bigots or whatever. Like, and again, rules and exceptions. There are exceptions, maybe not, and that's kind of changing. Jordan Hall goes to a church that's kind of like that, but apparently they accept him. What if the new what if the vanguard of people that are really open to further up and further in and of founding God and still pursuing him isn't in Orthodoxy, and it's in the Southern Baptist Church? What a funny thing that would be. You know, what if all these converts to Orthodoxy are the Ortho bros are the fundamentalists? What if what if like I went over here to find a living tradition that wants to go further up and further in and grow and change and evolve? And it's interesting because it's a very slow moving thing. Like that's probably going to frustrate me at times, you know, unless I just learn an inner peace and quiet myself and go inward like Rilke and learn my own solitude, a comfort with my own solitude, and I don't need to see that reciprocated in the other people with whom I practice my faith, at least physically. Oh, somebody's here, and I did not. Okay. How am I gonna do this? I'm gonna have to go because I'm gonna have to talk to people. Okay. Dang it. I'll never give a straight answer, Toxin. I have no idea when I'll ever talk to Jordan Hall. I mean, maybe in person sometime, but I'm probably never gonna pursue having a Zoom conversation with him because that's not what I'm interested. I don't know Jordan Hall. I'm almost 0% Christian YouTube. I'm not seeking big people to talk to. I want to do live streams and talk to my friends. It isn't the SBC that showed up. How should I do this? Tell me in the comments. I need to talk to someone for a while. If I had branding, this is where I would play branding. Here, this is what I'll do. I'm going to open up the stream. People come in and talk. And I will come back because I just have to go for a while, but I don't want to shut down the stream. All right. Here we go. I'm muting myself.
Wow, 31 people remained watching Luke's dead air. Unbelievable. Hey, what's up?
Hello. How's it going? Not much.
Back in mind, I've taken over.
How's it going?
Oh, it's pretty good. I had the day off. I had the day off today, so I saw Luke was streaming. So
nice. Yeah, what a nice surprise to see you. I wasn't expecting.
Yeah, normally I'm working at this time, so
I heard that.
I have the day off.
How have you been? It's been a little while since we've spoken.
I'm hanging in there. I'm doing all right. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
I came to ask Luke if he's still interested to talk with. There's this guy, Keelan, who I've been talking with. He has that channel Formscapes, and he does astrology stuff, and I know Luke is interested in the Enneagram, and this guy Keelan thinks that he sees a way where they map, and figured they might be able to have an interesting conversation.
Yeah, I don't know. You'd have to ask Luke about that. I don't know anything about that.
Mm-hmm.
I know nothing about Enneagram at all.
Yeah, I don't know much either.
Yeah. Hey, Tayo.
Tayo.
I was coming on to let people in, but the man himself is there, so
Yeah.
good to see you, Nate.
Yeah, good to see you. Yeah.
Did you catch Luke's monologue at the beginning?
I caught part of it. I don't think I saw. I don't think I caught the very, very beginning of it. I think actually, well, no, I think he gave it. He said how long he'd been going. He said he'd been going for like 15 minutes or something like that. So I caught the tail, but I did catch part of it. But I didn't realize he was streaming until he's about 15 minutes into it.
It was a good one.
JD, you look older in a good way. You look more.
I've got a little facial hair down on.
Yeah, there's a little something growing there. I see you shining.
Yeah,
I can't resist this from Phoebus. Should Luke just skip to the end and become Anglican? Okay. I'm going to say something. I love my Orthodox friends, but I'm going to say something that's going to probably make them mad. If you're a native English speaker, you should just be Anglican. That's all I'm going to say. Say it that way. Yeah.
God save the king.
Yeah.
I remember hearing you talk about Anglicanism one time, and I was like, "Oh, that's interesting." I don't know much about it though. I like being not raised.
Well, Anglicanism is complicated because there are many different branches and factions within it. So it's like saying Baptist almost.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Gotcha. I know that it's kind of a more. I remember heard it mentioned. We don't have to get into this. It's interesting to me though, because it's kind of relevant to that whole Paul Kingsnorth and civilization conversation, right? Like insofar as some with God Save the King, as Tayo said, it's kind of, it would be more sociological is perhaps the word. It has to do with all of creation in a sense, where even the kings and the laymen are perceived as part of this larger hierarchy.
Well, I think that the English monarchy in particular is exactly the kind of monarchy that even I would support as basically an anarcho monarchist.
Mm-hmm.
So because the English king has no power and is really just reduced to the symbolic role of kingship only,
mm-hmm.
Which is, but here's the thing though, is that we need that.
Mm-hmm.
So we still need that symbolic kingship, and we find other ways to try to reproduce it. But it's just it's better to just have a fairly useless king with no real political power.
Mm. Yeah, it's interesting. Something about that definitely is attractive to me. I could acknowledge the symbolic value of having, it's interesting.
Yeah.
Did either of you guys see Matsi's rando with PVK?
No. Tell me about it, Tayo.
Well, it was. I also did not know that Matsi grew up Unitarian Universalist. That was an interesting revelation.
I didn't know that either. I've known Matt for a while now, and I did not know that. I saw parts. I saw the clip that he put out on Twitter, and I was meaning to watch it, but I haven't got a chance to watch the whole thing yet. But that's one I'm definitely gonna watch, because I really respect Matt, and I think he's a very wise person. and I want to hear a story. So
It was basically it's definitely worth watching. But what I got from it was Matt was attempting to put over uh, the Reformed tradition,
right,
particularly the Dutch Reformed tradition, and mapping out what it is about
right.
the Dutch tradition that made this so that PBK is able to do what it's doing with the
Sure,
TLC.
sure. Another great reason to be Anglican, because you can be Catholic and Reformed at the same time.
How does that work? Is that like just because it's kind of like in the middle, or?
Yeah, what I mean, let's say, okay, it's Anglicanism, right? So this is kind of like, to be in the middle is kind of just the Anglo-Saxon temperament. Like,
I'm a
that's
big
just
fan. I'm a big fan of the middle. The middle. It's always good to be in the middle. So.
so. Not like the Anglo-Saxon temperament avoids extremes. There's a reason why the American Revolution looks different from the French Revolution.
You're selling me. There's not many selling points that I would go for before kind of the balanced middle. That always seems to be pretty much any context. It's like that's applicable. Yeah. Heard that.
It's interesting the way different people's journey into TLC maps or helps to frame what it is they see TLC as. And I think Orando's conversation is very revelatory for that. I think
Yeah,
I'm not Dutch nor Reformed, but I lean towards Matt's mapping of what TLC is and how it's working in some ways.
right.
Do you mind relaying it a little bit? I didn't get a chance to catch this convo.
I don't know if I can do it justice, but it's the no, I'm not even going to attempt it.
That's all good, yeah.
Paul went into the history of the Dutch Reformed, as well as the Dutch being placed between the English, the French, and the German, gives them a sort of temperament to be careful watchers.
Yeah. You know, it's funny. Okay, so Tayo, my son actually has a little bit that he does on this, because like he kind of plays off of the Dutch temperament and kind of like the some of the stereotypes of the extreme sort of hyper Calvinism, and those things and how those things play against each other. And so he'll do like this. He'll do this thing in an accent where he says, like, well, you know, of course you're going to burn in eternal hellfire as a vessel of God's wrath, but here's a nice spook bubble, you know. So it's like,
that's good.
That's like a Calvinist meme.
Stroopwafel is good, and certainly a sign of the existence of God. I never had a stroopwafel in my entire life until 2020, when I went to a Dutch Reformed stronghold area of Iowa as a volunteer for the Yang campaign, and that was the first time I had it. And
I don't think I've ever had one. Never had one.
Yeah, they're good. They're great. Great to have with it's great to have with coffee, with your coffee in the morning, in particular. It's a nice little sweet treat. Better than a donut, in my opinion. Donut's a little too heavy. I'm not a big breakfast person, but I could definitely manage a stroopwafel with my coffee, for sure. Get a little sugar rush in the morning. But the donut's too much.
I feel that. Tayo, are you did you manage to get a ticket to Midwestern?
Yes, sure.
Nice.
Oh,
very nice.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Shout out to the good people of TLC and Neil and Mo.
That's awesome.
Very cool.
Are you going to be there? Are you going to be there, Jonathan?
I am indeed.
Oh. Woo! It gets better.
Yeah, Sir Eve and I will be there too, and
Nice.
Slack's coming.
Very nice.
Woo! Yes,
Woo!
that's the best news of all.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Did you
That's
say you
amazing.
and you said you and Sherry, or you said you and someone else, or I didn't
Me-
catch that.
My wife, Sarah Eve.
Gotcha,
Yeah.
gotcha.
I don't know if Sherry's coming or not. I know Sherry's going to be coming to the one in North Carolina.
Yeah.
Yeah, Sherry's
in
going to the
October because she's going to be on the panel.
Nice. Yeah. Awesome. I still haven't been to my local estuary. There's literally one in my hometown, and I keep missing it. I have to get to
Oh,
it.
really?
Yeah.
What's your hometown?
It's in Glastonbury, Connecticut.
Okay.
Yeah.
And there's an estuary there, huh?
Yeah, it happens to be in my hometown. It's kind of sus. It's like, whoa. But no, I think it's just an awesome coincidence, or not that I believe in coincidences, but you know.
I don't know if there. Do you know if there's? I wonder if are there any cities with 2 estuaries yet?
I did a map because I'm hoping to do a little bit of a road trip before Midwestuary, where we would maybe even stop at some of the other estuaries, and so we made a map. This is me and Joe Cross, who hangs out in the Grimgriz Discord server often. Made a map of all the estuaries, and it looks like there's a concentration around like the Chicago kind of that Midwest, north of Midwest area, but they're generally speaking they're kind of sparse.
Yeah. Well, the reason I was asking because Olympia is going to have a second estuary.
Nice. Cool.
So we're in the process of one of the guys that's been in my estuary for a couple of years is he's been going to Van Donk's ELC or not LSNAT trainings, and we have a second venue in mind.
Nice.
I'm gonna Father Joe and I will go. Well, actually, I haven't told Father. I'm gonna use Father Joe's connection in order to help secure the second venue. I haven't told him yet, but I know he's gonna agree to it. So it's not like if Father Joe hears this, he'll say, "Yeah, of course that makes sense." But Father Joe has a friendship with one of the pastors over at Olympia CRC, which was the venue where we hosted the Estuary Northwest conference. And obviously it's CRC. CRC already knows what estuary is, and they know who Paul is, so they kind of know what we're doing. So talking to Oli CRC about being a venue for a second Olympia estuary group that would meet on a different night and a different time is a plan that I have, because our group we currently have to split and go into 2 different parts of the church for our group because our average attendance is like about 12 people. Nice. So I think I think Olympia needs another estuary.
Cool. Is that Mr. Luke back? Welcome back, Mr. Luke.
What up, guys? So whoever, Nate or Tayo, whoever came on and saved
it was me.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I saw 31 people watching dead screen, and I'm like, I got to do something.
How long did that happen? How long?
Not long, just a couple
surprisingly
minutes.
Long for 31 people to continue watching a dead screen.
That's true, also.
Let's get them back. Let's get them back. So I don't know. I haven't gone back through comments, and I don't know if you guys were talking about it, but so to flesh out more what's on my mind is that being able, this goes all the way back to my first, I wouldn't call it excommunication. I've never been formally excommunicated, but like in my worst church experience, which I've spoken about multiple times, I think maybe the best one is when on Sam's channel, when he and I talk about our church experiences. So the brief outline of that story was I was at a different, look at this. This will get the views. This will get the clicks.
Oh, shit.
Welcome, Alan. So I was moving. I used to live in Washington State for a while. and I was moving back to South Dakota, where we lived for a while, and I was going to
Where in Washington did you live, Luke?
Wenatchee.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I think you've mentioned that to me before.
Yeah.
Big apple growing part of the state.
A lot of fruit.
Wenatchee, yeah.
It's real fruity there. So's Minneapolis. I like fruity. And I was moving back, and while I was in Washington is when I started deconstructing the ideology of hell that I was taught. Like, that's when that began. That's when I saw that YouTube video of Chris Date, who is a reformed evangelical annihilationist who was debating some guy who I forget his name on the doctrine of hell. And I had that liminal moment of just like, what the hell? Like, everything I was ever taught is not true about this, or it was very limited. And so I had been studying the doctrine of hell for a long time.
You didn't just annihilate Alan, did you?
I don't know.
Annihilated out of reality.
So then when I was moving back to South Dakota, I actually was we decided to go to what was a church plant of the church that we had been attending in Minneapolis when we were there my first iteration in Minneapolis. And so it was a Sovereign Grace Ministries church, which, if anybody knows about it, C.J. Mahaney or Joshua Harris, the guy who wrote Icus Dating Goodbye. Those are like the two main guys from that thing. And they're John Piper, Bethlehem adjacent, Gospel Coalition. They're like Reformed Baptists. They're Calvinist Baptists, but also charismatic, interestingly. So they're a weird mix. So we were going to go to that church because that felt like church home to us at the time. But I, wanting to be fully above board, I contacted that pastor who I was acquainted with and knew and was connected with, and just said, listen, I want to come to your church, but here's where I am. And I want to be fully transparent. I do not believe in eternal conscious torment. And being an evangelical Christian and believing that Scripture is the authority at that time in the way that Protestants do, sola scriptura, because I also believed that at the time because I was told that's what I was supposed to believe. I said, I want to be able, this gets at the metagelical thing. I want to be able to process this stuff communally. I don't want to do it in isolation with just me and my Bible. I want to be able to talk about these things and process it and be Berean. I want to search the Scriptures diligently to talk about these things, to which, any good pastor being presented with that, he's just like, amen, brother, absolutely. But here's the thing. This is why I always say, but he already knew he was right, and he just had to process with me as I was processing until I eventually came to the conclusion, which was his conclusion, which is, well, you're just going through a phase and you just need to get on board, which with the obvious clear teaching of Scripture, which is eternal conscious torment.
Mm-hmm.
And so, and I learned that. And so all of that to say, like, on the title is, I don't know. I truly don't know, because I have no experience being in the Orthodox Church I've been attending an Orthodox church for, I don't know, 7 years or something like that. And I don't really know if they, as a body, again, and it's very big and very old, and there's local instantiations of it, so it's going to vary from different traditions and different parishes. But is the Orthodox Church any more open to discussing various interpretations of theology and Scripture than the Southern Baptist Church, and is that going to change and evolve over time? I don't know, because that is something that's very, I don't know that it's a deal breaker for me. Oh, and here's another question. Like, does that have to happen at your local church? Maybe not,
Oh boy. So
Yes.
This is interesting because you are hitting on like two aspects of the fact that that meaning making is a community thing.
Yes.
At two different levels that are in tension.
Yes.
You want to be part of a community of meaning making that is open, essentially. That
I
does
think
not
you have to
that.
be. I mean, you have to be. That's the Tomberg spiral.
This
versus
is all I have to say is read Tradition and Apocalypse.
Yeah.
Really, seriously, read Tradition and Apocalypse, because I think that's what David is hitting on in that book, is that the way in which we can't, the tradition is something that is alive, that is being formed by its final cause, and to think that it is absolutely fixed, and is not still in process, is to discount that reality.
Yes, and I think Orthodoxy would acknowledge that, but this is the difference between a Sunday school and an act.
Well, I think some Orthodox and some Catholics are totally fine with that kind of thinking, and some are not. And it's actually the Protestant converts that are the least comfortable with that, because they're wanting to have something to replace the secure authority of sola scriptura.
Yes.
So they're going to do the same thing with tradition with a capital T.
Yeah. So instead of being a biblicist, you become a traditionalist.
Traditionalist. Yeah, exactly. It's the same. There are two different ways of trying to grasp after the same false certainty.
Yes.
That's never going to be real, that you're never going to have.
I would agree. Yeah.
So,
Michael, what do you think as an Orthodox person?
So, having come into the church as a result of Peterson's work, a lot of obsession with Jungian symbolism, so on and so forth. I find myself with a perspective that isn't shared in the broader ecclesia of the Orthodox Church, right? And what I'm more and more convinced of is how much that doesn't matter, because I have to live the life that they live, right? Like at the beginning of the Lent, I was like, okay, I'm fasting, and then for whatever reasons in the middle, I wasn't, like, at all, right? And then Holy Week, I went, okay, 100% again, right? But I noticed that in between period, I had it was harder to be around the community, just logistically, because I wasn't in the middle of fasting. Couldn't talk about the same things, right? About the same struggles, about the same foods that we were eating, whatever. So then there was a level of separation outside of the community, right? Not fully, just parts, right? And so there are things that make it in group, and there are things that make it out group, right? And what's important is to live this embodied life, or what strikes me as important is to live this embodied life of keeping the fasts, of participating in the liturgy together, so on and so forth, in order to be Orthodox. And then everybody, everybody there that I'm in coffee hour with and communing with, right? They've got different ideas. They all have different ideas. They're not all on the same page about things at all, not even close, right?
God, quick interjection. Words are so funny, right? Like, on the same page. God, there's so much in that idiom. It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't, to your point, so like you're almost equating fasting to the process of engaging with people in the participation of evolving, understanding, and further up and further in. Like that's one way that you can participate with a community, with a body. Fasting is another way that you can participate with a body. Liturgically and sacramentally is another way that you can participate with a body. What makes a corporate body, what makes it real? Which of those things are necessary?
Well, okay, so then all of it's real, right? But it's like, how much overlap is there?
Yeah.
Right? So I have a ring with an Orthodox cross on it. I've got a bunch of Orthodox books. I have lunch with Orthodox people. In the liturgy. I'm in a church that goes, hey, we're in communion with these other bodies. And so like the more I am embedded in that, right? It's not the thinky talky stuff that keeps them in communion, although it's inclusive of that. There is some degree of that, right? And they go, we must be on the same page about things in this creed, no exception, right? Now you may interpret parts of the creed a little bit differently, right? But that's a qualification. So is you have to be in communion by the grace of your priest, and in confession in order to participate in this thing. Like, are you even within your local community, right, able to take communion because you are part of the communing body, right? And so it's all of it. There, you are as much part of that body as you share with them.
Is just highlighting chat's comments because I was thinking that's what I was picking up is that it sounds to me like meaning making is a self-centered thing.
But that's a completely the opposite. No one was. That's the thing, though, is like Chad misunderstood entirely because Luke was talking about meaning making in the context of communities of meaning making, which means that it's something that we are doing together, which is not self-centered.
Well, it's kind of because it's the sincerity authenticity thing. I think what personal meaning is when a person with integrity can authentically be sincere to its givenness. It requires both of those things. And what Chad is talking about is mere authenticity. And when he's talking about self-centered, I think what Chad means is mere authenticity, which isn't what I'm trying to talk about.
I don't know, because what he said is that meaning making is self-centered. No, that's not because there's no such thing as a self-centered meaning making, because you can't make meaning on your own. It doesn't you cannot as an individual decide what things mean. You're going to have to use some kind of collective representation that it's arrived at in another community. It may not be the same as it may be like the broken collective representations of a weird microculture, but you didn't get your meanings from yourself. You didn't self-generate those meanings. Those meanings were still generated in community.
But if
you can't possibly generate meaning on your own.
Agreed on that front. But if you're this is to Luke's point about it being both. If you're the one making the choice of which community to be a part of, that is you having control over your sense making apparatus. Because in Luke's example, he was he left churches that it didn't find was suitable to his meaning making, whereas his sense making where it's currently at. So there is a sense in which you've got that there's that conversation and that has to be negotiated between how much do I align with the body I'm a part of, and at which point do I not see the I in the we.
Yes.
It's reminding me of course, the terminology of like Ahriman and Lucifer, and where, and also just I could see what you're saying. It's where the Protestants, the Orthodox, are kind of two ways of doing the same type of thing, in so far as it's more of this communal, kind of traditional, habitual thing. But I would also say I could also see the Protestants as being more on the Luciferic kind of freedom and individualism sense, and so far as it's more so about kind of inspiration and there's kind of perhaps a more future orientation, or insofar as you see the Protestants kind of changing and breaking off into new groups and stuff, and that does kind of entail this I don't know, it's a little loose I'm not sure if I fully
this
got
is also a very Western centric way to talk about this, or to even refer to the Orthodox. Okay, if you take the broader stance of the hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years of life in the Orthodox Church, you don't have like one thing. You have many things, right? There are things that bind them, right? But there are also many differences, right? You think primarily Orthodox Russia in the late 1800s turns into the Soviet Union. Okay, there's lots of differences that can come about even within that body, right? But the more that they isolate out, right, and the more anti-patterns that are created that would have bound them together, right, the more it's going to fracture or transform or shift.
But also you need
right?
the anti-patterns, because if it was only this habitualizing patterning, then things would become solidified and dead, you know, so you do need the kind of other side too, right?
In as much as that which isn't eternally true.
What do you mean?
So what I, as far as I can see,
I don't think there really are any eternal truths either. I think that even God himself is this process in a sense, you know, and that the dogma must change over time.
Blasphemy.
So what I might say to that is that I see a confession that what Messiah is something that is the Ancient of Days, is Alpha and Omega, and is eternally true, and that kind of true has hypostasis or personhood.
But we're never going to ultimately know that, so we're always going to be mystically approaching it, you know?
And like in my life, however much I am obedient to that depends on the fruits. Like I can see the fruits. I can see when I'm not obeying, and the kind of like resentment that comes out of me, or frustrations, or how I don't handle stress well, or I'm not calling my mom, or whatever thing, right? Like I can see these things come out, and I think that's true fractally. You see how a community starts behaving the more that they wander off a path.
So that to me is the more interesting question. Is like, how do we know that a community is starting to get its collective representations, its meanings right? How do we determine that? That is the better question, because that I mean the idea that meaning making is selfish. I'm sorry, Chad, I'm not trying to be your dad. It's not actually possible for you to make your own meaning. Like it's just technically can't be done. Your meanings are always going to be derived from community, from context, from group. That's just how it works. So the question is, how do we discern that the community that we are aligning ourselves with in our meaning making, how do we know that they're on the right track and that this is a path we should continue on? That's the question. And I would say that it's judgment and discernment. And you will not be able to give a perfect rational articulation of why, which ties back to the things that Michael kept talking about you just have to live it. You just have to embody it.
Which is one of that thing. That's one of the things. The only thing in the Henry conversation, the only answer that they have, where I was just like, I would jump in here if it wasn't just like a randos stranger podcast game show, and just, you know, like Sherry, throw a wrench, or like God, and just because they said at some point, like, what his answer, I think, to like, what are you most afraid of? And I think his answer, I think this was right. But correct me if other people are on here and they've watched it, but it was just like, and I think he said that there's no reason behind why anything is happening. And I'm just like, oh man, get ready to enter into that Jovian hell, buddy. Because there aren't. There are no reasons. The road to hell is paved with first principles. Huh?
Sorry, I thought you were glitching a little bit. Am I coming through? Okay.
Yeah, I can hear you, Tayo.
Yeah, let me just give a bit of a pushback to the. I think the question is right. I think you asked the right question. Just want to give a bit of pushback to your answer of it, not because I've got a better answer, but because I think it points to what Chad was saying, which is if what we've got our sense making tool, as you said, is discernment and judgment, and there isn't a way in which you're not able to rationalize or give a reason for why you're making those judgments sometimes,
Yeah.
then are we not just back to what Chad said? Is it not just a person for person? If I don't have to explain to you why it is I've discerned and judged the way that I have, how am I able to convince you that my judgment is right? We're back to where we started.
So,
yeah. Well,
go ahead.
So I think, I mean, this is very apropos, I think, of there's a couple things that come to mind. All of the Pascal things and trampling down death by death, that idea, and and the Rilke solitude thing. And I think even you could even go, let's bring in Pilgrim's Progress. Let's bring in some good reformed examples. Like when you enter into that river, when Pilgrim enters into the river, he enters alone. We all die alone. So to Chad's point, I think Christ on the cross died alone, forsaken by everyone. And I think there is something profoundly non-dual that includes duality in dying alone, and or even having confirmation alone, being left to your own integrity like Job, that I think is necessary in your ultimate suffering and becoming your own Whitestone name. That's the very esoteric way of saying it all. Because I do think at the end, this isn't to say that that's isolated from all your other relations, but I think ultimately the point of being transformed through your death is, if the person is a unity of relations, in your death, all those relations die.
I'm surprised that what I feel like I heard was a taking on of a presupposition about dying alone, and I don't actually agree with that.
That you die alone?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I'm inclined to agree with Michael here. Actually,
It's making me think about the Barfield stuff about community and how you have to, like, there's this separation from the group, and like there's kind of a prefigurement of that with Christ where he realizes, like, there's an I amness which shines through him, and it's this pure subjectivity, which is like cosmic subjectivity, the very I amness of the universe. So there is a certain, like, your communal self has to die to become like a true. There is this individuation process, which could also, in a sense, be connected with that kind of Luciferic turning away from the garden. Being tempted to, but at the same time, I think it's also like a necessary thing in a sense, like the fall. There is this, there is something like that, which I'm being reminded of insofar as when we die, like there is this transformation. In order to properly participate in community, you have to kind of separate, be transformed, or something like that. I don't know. Just some vague thoughts.
Why? Hold on. Why can't it be both? For all this non-dualism talk, I don't see a lot of people say both are true.
Oh yeah, I'm not a big. I like the both and. I would probably say that.
Luke, how do we teach you to embrace, to see your opposition as your brother, and where both sides take off the mask and you realize you?
Well,
that's what it's all about. That's what it's all about.
To bring in Charles Williams in the book that I have not finished, but The Descent of the Dove, that's his main idea of what the becoming of the church is that God in Christ and in the church is reconciling the world to himself. And if reconciliation is the ultimate thing, there has to be the separation. You have to have the separation for reconciliation.
You
And I
get
think
it.
this is it. Like being okay.
So
Sorry,
I think that the reason Michael does not want to agree with Luke that we all die alone is that I think Michael, when he thinks of who the person is, he's not thinking the same thought that Luke is thinking when he says that we all die alone. And I think Jason Almondtree's comment here about Christian nihilism, where he says, I agree with Luke, we all die alone, Christian nihilism, in forgiveness there is a field beyond right and wrong, and if there's such an oblivion, behold, I am gone. But what is that? But the I that you're talking about being gone there is the ego, and I don't think from Michael's perspective that's what you ever were. Which is why Michael can say, no, it would be impossible for you to die alone, because nothing is ever alone, including God. We're Trinitarians, right?
but he kind of is on the cross.
So Luke, I might point at us saying memory eternal, and I would point at the saints and those icons that we remember those saints with, and I go, okay, when their flesh passed, they weren't alone when their flesh was passing. They weren't alone when their flesh was here. And memory eternal, membership, right? They continue to be part of a body, right? A body that is together, united under the highest principality, right?
Yeah, I think I agree with you, and that's
it's not the Trinity that dies on the cross. It is the second person of the Trinity that dies on the cross.
Oh, geez, is Sam still here? Sam, get in here. There's, he is so colonized my consciousness, Congress. Whenever somebody mentions the Trinity, I automatically hear Sam talking.
Yeah, but you got to remember, I'm like I'm the anti-Sam, because I'm the person who can't think anything other than the Trinity and cannot wrap my mind around any fundamental monism whatsoever.
Well,
because I think that's an ontological impossibility.
I can't either, but increasingly I'm trying to talk, even though I will circle into the abstractions. I think it's very Christian to talk in very earthy, simple ways in a lot of ways. That probably seems very hypocritical for me to say for people who watch my streams. I do. So memory eternal, what I was going to say about that is I think this is the timepiece. And I think almost like I'm thinking Stephen D20, our own like thermodynamic linear experience within the temporality of the particularity of time. Yes, in eternal, memory eternal, yes. But I think to be remembered, there's the non-dual side of that is to be forgotten. In order to be remembered, you have to be forgotten.
So I would agree with that, but is there a break, right? Is there a break? Like we colloquially use remember, but it's like, here's this saint, right? Here is Paul of Tarsus, who continues to be in memory, right? Now, should I forget him, right? Then I have to remember, and is he being remembered, or am I being remembered, right? Because a reattachment of membership is happening. In which direction it's happening, I think, is up for debate.
Well, right, and I think most simply, so two things. I think most simply to die, and like by that I mean real death, to like pass out of existence, is to be forgotten by God. I think that's what that means.
But nothing good is truly forgotten.
True. I think that's true, but that's where the faith piece comes in. But then the other side, what I was going to say is most simply, existentially, when I think this is the thing, is like when you die, that happens existentially. Like you're not, when all of us die, this is why I say like you can't hold on to resurrection of the dead as some ideological abstraction, because guess what's going to happen to that ideological abstraction when you die? It's going to cease to exist.
Well, so if I start getting obsessed with drinking all the time, smoking a bunch of weed, doing a bunch of psychedelics, and indulging a bunch of good food, I am taking on the death that Dionysus cannot help but inevitably bring.
Hey, well, it depends how you use these various substances.
Absolutely, absolutely. And so, like, if that alcohol is used, right, in Eucharistic Thanksgiving, right, to eat together, right, and to bring a community together in proper proportion, well, then that's not Dionysus.
Right. No, this is the thing, and I was thinking about this the other day. I hadn't, and it's something I've thought about for a long time. I was thinking about Verbake's thing about reciprocal broadening and reciprocal narrowing in the way that it relates to judgment. Because I just taken a Lonergan class, and so Lonergan had me thinking a lot about judgment from my reading of Lonergan. And one of the things I would say about judgment is that we talked earlier about these false models of certainty that we chase after, whether it be traditionalism or sola scriptura or whatever. Those are both the reason we cling to certainty and seek certainty is because we want to avoid judgments. But one of the best ways that we can make a judgment about what I talked about, like discerning whether a community's meaning making is on the right path or not, is to look at whether the impact of it is reciprocally broadening for the people participating in it or reciprocally narrowing for the people participating in it. I would say that if you look at like what's happens in like ideologically captured communities, or if we want to believe Peterson, psychopathically driven communities, whatever everything is going on there, they lead people into a reciprocally narrowing path, and they're more and also because of that narrowing, they're more and more focused. Their life becomes more and more about that thing and nothing else. And I would say that if you look at like the Christians that I know that are practicing their tradition and relating to their tradition in a healthy way, and the Jews that I know that are practicing their tradition and engaging with their tradition in a healthy way, that's not what's going on with them. Like you can see the way in which it impacts and enriches and broadens and opens up their life.
So if you go around the Orthodox parishes throughout the country, which I've just been fortunate to have been able to do a fair amount of in the short amount of time that I've been around it, you will see, hopelessly dying parishes where just down the street, that's not the case at all, right? And there's a difference on how on the kind of body that exists. There are things that they share in common, but there are things that they absolutely do not. And the differences there lead to different kinds of fruits. I mean, if you get an extremely ethnocentric parish together who is like, well, you're not this ethnic identity, again, not taking really the deeper roots of that word, but you're not this. Why are you here? Okay, well, then there's a good chance that has a limit on how far that's going to be able to go, right? Like, so you see these examples.
I wish Jess would get in here and talk about this because this is interesting. Because I wonder what's operational there. He says Job's friends accuse him. I would like him to explain what he means there, because I think that might be onto something. But I need him to explain it to me to make sure I understood it. Oh, here I have to successfully summon Jess to talk about Job. Okay.
No. Stop it! Everyone's trying to add him at the same time. Also, I want to say a few fun. Listen, on a Luke stream, we have to oscillate between gravity and levity. We got to talk about serious, abstract, obtuse theological things, but then we need to circle down and we need to talk about.
And I took the day off today because it is the NFL draft. So if anybody wants the Nate Isle mock draft,
that would require some update from me to talk about. We could talk about Matt C's boat. We can talk about his tiki bar. We can talk about how Matt, you and I need to eat. We need to break bread together. And
Yeah, I hope, God willing, it'll happen in Chicago.
yeah,
We
God
look
willing.
forward to that.
yeah.
Okay.
Okay,
Jess,
we
tell me
definitely,
something
okay,
there.
we have to have at least one shared meal in Chicago. Matt, Luke,
A lot.
for sure.
We gotta
Yeah,
be
at least one.
fun.
Yeah.
We need to have many.
I mean, the Job gets accused of reciprocally narrowing. So like this has always been my problem with Vervaeke's sort of, how do we know we're gaining wisdom? Well, we'll see these signs or whatever. And basically the signs are mostly right, but there's always use cases where it just doesn't apply. And so therefore you can't, it doesn't, you don't have like an absolute framework. That's basically what I'd say. Like you can have a general framework that these things should be, but you don't have something that's absolutely all the time. And
can you give me like some specific parts of the text that make that I'm because I like that the accusation against Job that he is reciprocally narrowing?
I mean, I can't bring it. It's a general sense. There's no like
okay
exact. I think I have a way of thinking about it. Like the if the reciprocal opening could go with the open circle, then we could plug in Cherry's thinking about how integrity and Job's integrity is what kind of opens the circle in a sense. It's like that's virginal correctness, such that and that's kind of like communion with God is like if that's the goal or something like that, then his friends would be like, "You're not opening the circle such that we can have a right relationship with God." But he's like, "Actually, I have integrity."
Well, don't they fear? Okay, here's what I would say. Tell me what you think of this, Jess. I think you're onto something, but I would read it more in this way. I would say that they do make an accusation against Job of reciprocally narrowing. We can phrase it that way because they fear the destruction of the order that they have. Because if Job is right, and he isn't being punished for because he deserved it, right? And their entire karmic worldview is now gone, and they'll have to reboot the system entirely, and that feels to them like a reciprocal narrowing because they can't imagine the world that Job is trying to bring them into in speaking the truth. They can't imagine what that even is. And I think Jonathan is right to say that the world that Job is pointing to is the real one. Right? It is the world of the open circle. It is the world of the reign of the Sabbath.
There's an even better example, the narrow gate that Jesus talks about.
Yes, right.
Like that's a reciprocal, like it's the only way to get to the bigger world, the new world, but it can be accused as reciprocal narrowing.
Yep, I think that's exactly right. And it makes sense because I think we're smart enough to know that it's like that is the discerning tool that is most reliable. So to make that accusation is the best way to defeat something that is potentially opening up the world in a broader way. And it's easy to overcome things like that because when they're that radical and shake things up that much, it's easy to make that challenge.
Yeah, well, like if you think of it, Cherry's on it. The narrow gate is the birth canal. Like that's the whole imagery there. And so like in order to go from the womb to the world, you have to go through this narrow gate. And so whenever someone comes to a point of reciprocal narrowing, like that possibility is always available to them. So like when someone gets into like say like an ideology, they're just so focused on it. One tactic is just to encourage them to apply it rigorously.
and they won't be able to
Right.
because it'll end up breaking out at some point. And
this makes me think, Jess, of when you're talking about this makes me think of the idea of bottoming out, right? Where you go down your reciprocally narrowing pathway until you actually do hit the bottom of it. And in hitting the bottom of it, then that affords the opportunity for your world to open back up again.
Okay,
so
quick interjection, levity. We gotta get some levity back in here. This is fine.
With some comedy, please.
This is fine. Two things. This is my hairbrush that I got to try to improve my scalp health. It is made with it's boar bristles. It's made in France.
Nice.
This is the kind, Matt. You and I are going to relate about so many things. It's going to be amazing, and we do. And I love this brush. I'm trying to improve
future tips.
Also, this comment, the Billy Crudup of the corner. I know who that is. I would have known in general if I would have looked it up. I would have related the name to the face. Interesting little side story. So when I met Alan who's here, and I was in New York with my wife, we went to a bar that I was very excited about, Tiki, and it wasn't a Tiki bar, but it's like a world famous bar. I was
It's called Tiki, but it wasn't a Tiki bar?
No, it wasn't a Tiki bar. I just said Tiki because Matt C. I mean, I'm just
got you.
I'm going here and there and everywhere.
Got you.
And there was this girl at the bar. My wife laughs because this happens to me all the time. She's like, it's like I'm wearing a sign that just says, come and talk to me and make comments about me and my appearance. And it happens all the time. It's actually very ridiculous. So this woman came up to me at the bar. Me and my wife were sitting there. And she came up to me just sloppy drunk. I think she was Australian. She moved there. And she had a bunch of extra, it's like a chicken-based, the food that's there is like this chicken-based bar. So she had all these like fancy popcorn chicken. And she's like, there's these extra chicken things. And she's like, do you want them? And I was like, absolutely. Like I always want everyone's extra food. When somebody sends back food at a restaurant, like it's so hard for me not to like ask to eat it. I can't. It's such a difficult situation for me. I used to eat food all the time. Back when I was an analytical chemist, we would get Jimmy John's sandwiches, corporate, just brought to us. And people who wouldn't eat their food, I'd be watching it, and they'd put the package in the garbage. I would pull the package out and eat the extra food.
I've worked in restaurants before, and I've definitely eaten some things that come back.
So back to this woman. We're going to fulfill on Billy Crudup. She comes over to me and she's just like, oh, this is so great. All my brothers would love this. And she's sloppy drunk. She's a lesbian. Her wife is there. You could tell her wife is just like, as all this is going on, her wife is very uncomfortable. She's wanting to leave. She's just like, why are you talking to these people? And this woman just comes up to me and tells me that I look like Billy Crudup. Tons of people think I look like a celebrity. I don't know why it happens all the time. And
you're so good looking.
I don't think that's not what I was trying to do. That's not what I'm trying to say.
Wait, why is Timothy Chalamet talking about this stuff?
I always look up Luke Thompson and it comes up with that other guy. Who is that guy? We gotta get,
So she says that she thinks I look like Billy Crudup, and my wife thinks it's something about this part of my face. It's like my smile, something about the smile, and I didn't know who that was, but that was, and then she's just like, she kisses me. She asks if she could kiss me. She kisses me on the cheek. She says, it's fine. I'm a lesbian.
Not so lesbian after all.
Yeah. So
lesbian kisses don't count.
I think I changed her. So okay. We can go back to serious talk. Serious talk.
Well, so
that was weird.
So
I think I'm gonna, if I may, pop off here, but I wanted to join to Luke. Are you still down to talk with Mr. Keelan about the Enneagram? I was sorry to put you on the spot, but maybe set that up sometime, perhaps.
Yeah. I mean, I think I need to be a lot more intentional because I basically just about having scheduled conversations.
Welcome back. Also,
down times, but I need to make it work because I need to have that. Which one of your acquaintances is that? That's not
Keelan. His channel Formscapes.
Oh, it is the Formscapes guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would love to.
No rush. We'll just.
I feel like I think he's probably too technically, analytically intelligent. Like he would probably just talk. You just like, what the hell are you talking about?
A little bit. No, I think you guys would have a good conversation. But
okay, I'm
we'll
game.
See.
Okay.
Okay, cool. I'm probably gonna hop off here, but this is great. But welcome back as well. That's
sorry. I feel like
streams.
Thank you so much, Michael. I feel like I've interrupted your serious intellectual points for too long. Go ahead.
Oh no. Look, all I was going to get at is like within any of these lineages that we're dealing with, and I'm liking that word more and more than tradition, even, right? But these lineages, it's like, okay, if that branch is going to survive, that's going to happen probably at a time scale that is beyond any of us, right? And so that is for the Father, right? It is not for me. That's for the Father. And so what do I do? Right? I gotta be serious about the plank in my own eye, and I've got to help carry my brother's burden. Both, right? Whatever that is, whether it's actually a burden or not, I got to help carry it with them, but be really more concerned about the dirt in my own eye.
Yeah. Not wrong. It's at least the eyes, but it's also the smile.
Sorry, I also feel bad now because I think I just distracted from Michael's point again. Michael, I am indirectly insulting you a lot.
Michael's desperately trying to keep you within orthodoxy, and I commend him. I think if there's any hope for you, you've either got two choices, Luke. You either stay with the most allegedly the most shamanistic tradition and within Christianity, or you're an early adopter of whatever this new emergent manifestation of wherever we're going is going.
Do you think orthodoxy thinks of itself or just is most?
That's the branding in the Anglosphere. I don't know what nobody knows yet if the branding matches what's
well again, it's many things. It's many things, right? Like you go to some parishes and it is not that at all, and they wouldn't even know what the hell to do with an ortho bro, right? If they walked in there. But then you've got like some, I'm gonna poor Russians, specifically like some deeper real core folks, right? And they're coming from a lineage and a particular kind of past that is well suited to ortho bro entry, and thank God for that. Thank God for that, because whatever the hell gets them in the door so that their hearts might start being softened, right? And it's beautiful that it's big enough and diverse enough in order to be able to have these different intake points.
That I do want to acknowledge that that happens, by the way. I've seen that, some new Orthodox definitely transform from that ortho bro phase into being mature Orthodox. That does happen.
Yeah.
And to reinforce what folks are saying here, you don't exist in a vacuum. You're actually defined within your community. And Luke, you're discovering, do you want to be the conservative amongst your liberal friends? Do you want, what kind of framing do you want to have in relationship to those around you? Do you want to be the grumpy guy in the back? Do you want to be the guy straight at the front with all the questions? What's your relational?
I'm going to be the liberal. I will be the liberal in every group. I mean, that's just how I'm going to be. Like you put me in a group of a bunch of liberal, progressive, woke people. I'm going to be the liberal. I'm going to be the contrarian.
Yeah.
Contrarian, yes, but having spent a lot of time in those groups, I think you'd get some hell for not being anything close to a liberal pretty fast.
Well, but that's what I mean. They're not liberals. They're conservative.
Liberal. Yeah.
That's because I'm a real liberal.
Yeah.
Right. Oh, yeah. So you mean liberal. Yeah. I think that's something you and I have in common.
Yeah. Alan.
Also a contrarian and also naturally liberal in temperament.
Alan, tell us about your sweater. Is that handmade in Scotland? Please be.
It's good.
Yeah. No, I mean, I was reading about the Pharisees, and it sounded like they have all the right clothes and everything. I was like, okay, I gotta get the right stuff on. So like the right garments, the right washing.
It smells great. It's still got the lanolin.
Yeah. No.
Dry cleaning.
But one thing, I guess this is apropos to Michael's point of, I agree with, like, you're carrying your brother's burden, and Mike always has good points to make, and the log in your own eye, but it's like fractal, it's like you have to remember, like, when you see the big picture, it'll help you do things in the small. Like, I definitely, like, seeing the big picture and seeing God's grand design allows me to, like, wake up and move chairs at church, and, like, having that trust in God's plan. So I don't, like, separate the two from each other because they're fractal, of, like, you are participating in the grand plan when you make coffee, when you do the will of the Father, in the way that you're able to participate.
So, and I would agree
So
with that. But to me, it's the JD Vance concentric circles of care here, right?
mhm.
It's like okay, yeah, me log in my own eye, right? Then who's my direct family that I'm immediately responsible for? My community. So
yeah,
so
but here's the thing, though. The problem with Vance, the problem with Vance is, like, trying to turn that into an actual hierarchy, which it is not.
I have an idea. Let's fight about Ordo Amoris.
No, that's so last month.
Yeah.
Luke's
Listen, we can find newer things to hate each other about.
I don't hate anyone over it.
No,
I
I
certainly
know.
don't.
I'm just kidding.
We got to catch Luke up on all the drama. Get his feedback on it.
I think that there's that it is that there are orders of attention that do not suggest that there's any actual hierarchical structure, and they're not the same thing.
Well, so to what Sherry said earlier, she was talking about reciprocal narrowing, and I asked the question, do all bodies reciprocally narrow? And I think it's true, because hierarchies bind and blind, but I think because the Spirit moves where it wills, and because we are, because God doesn't show favoritism, like he's constantly moving. This is Romans 9 stuff. It's grafting in and grafting out, and God can make sons of Abraham out of rocks if he wants to, Also, I wanted to say that
I'm such a surprise. I'm surprised that all the Pajot heads haven't started jumping on me for saying that there's a difference between orders of attention and hierarchy. Because
I'm happy to.
Essentially, Pajot wants to have it be the same thing, as if orders of attention were hierarchy. But I don't think that's right. And I think the reason I push back about that is because of the inevitability of conflating. If you mean orders of attention and harmony, when you use the word hierarchy, no one's actually going to understand that that's what you mean.
Yeah, and so like the model that we have in our heads versus what we're
right, exactly.
Now look, my identity, right? Like I have to have more of my identity within the parish that I belong to versus the parish in Austin. I don't live in Austin,
right?
Even though I still have shared identity with them, right?
Correct.
So yeah, there's like proportionality, right? Proportionality of attention that has to be prioritized out of necessity in order for things to not be just chaos.
God doesn't need you to be everywhere because you can't be everywhere. So you just need to be open to be used. Your intention needs to be open to be used in the way that God wants to use it wherever you are.
Yeah.
The problem with the way that Vance presented the idea, the Good Samaritan shows why he's full of shit. Okay.
Whoa.
because the entire point of the parable of the Good Samaritan is that it puts these things in juxtaposition, right? So the Samaritan is a near and convenient target for charity. Only the act of charity actually is transgressive against the expectations of the context. And the target is the stranger. So the fact that he wants to use Ordo Amoris as a justification for refusal of charity to the stranger is horseshit.
Well, and I have a feeling that in Vance's own life, just to speculate, what we would see is like when directly confronted with that problem, like the stranger isn't the most strange stranger when they're right in front of my face, right? All of a sudden there is a relationality because they're right there in front of me, right?
But that potential, the potential for that to be the case, you have to be open, right? So the thing is like you have to actually be open. You have to be open to that, and like thinking of the context of the parable, like it's an action that is completely outside the bounds of accepted normal behavior in its time and place, because the person who becomes the target of the action of charity is actually the enemy. And that's actually something, by the way, that is something that can only happen through the action of grace.
It made me think of my mom, in her Pentecostal ways. And one of the things,
sure,
I got plenty of grievances in plenty of theological areas. But one of the things that she says, she goes, "What are we doing today, God? Right? What are we doing today? Like, what's in front of me right now? What's in front of me today?" And so there, in this like Eucharistic gratitude, right, of what's in front of me, where's the particular place at the particular time that you have put me, and what's in front of me, because I am responsible for tending that garden because I'm here.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Right. Exactly. Yeah. I absolutely want. Yeah. Like that. Like the idea of it's here. It's embodied. It's present. Like that's important. And that's the part of it that I would affirm, but which is precisely, but don't turn it into a formula. Don't turn it into a structure. Don't turn it into a hierarchy. That's the thing.
As a bit of a Peugeotian, I would say that it naturally lays itself out as a hierarchy.
Well, and it's both, because the hierarchies are going to naturally.
If you have in mind what Dionysus and Peugeot mean when they say the word hierarchy, I agree. But the thing is that people hear that and get the wrong idea all the time.
For sure. I mean, it's used as a justification for all kinds of ethnocentrism, as an example.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly. Precisely. Yeah. That's my problem. Yeah.
Isn't that a feature, not a bug? Isn't that the point?
It's both.
Oh boy! You
guys gonna tiptoe around it? I don't understand.
No. It's true.
This is a brave space. The whole point is we're trying to make ethnocentrism great again.
Yeah. No, for sure.
Sorry.
Well, look. But again, so part of the hierarchy here, right, is that the Christian race has to be higher than whatever your skin color race thing is, right? It's that it's of the heart in Christ, identity in the body of Christ, rather than my identity as an Englishman.
What about your identity within the ideology of Christianity?
I mean, look, I am as much Israel as I am obedient, being his hands and feet.
Okay.
So I have a spicy and related question for Matt. Is it possible for American identity to continue into the future if we do not continue to be a Protestant nation? Because I'm not sure that they're in what we have the collection of ideas we refer to as America, I think requires an underlying just default Protestant culture in order to support it, because it was never intended to be foundational, because it already looked to Protestant Christian tradition as its foundations, which is why this is like the whole idea of the neutrality of liberalism. It's not neutral. It just presumes a Protestant Christian foundation and then goes on from there. And it never occurs to it that there will at some point be a threat to that underlying foundation.
I have to bounce in 1 minute. Do you mind if I get a thing?
Yeah, go for it. Go for it.
So Nate, to me, I think that the only serious conversation that could be had about that is like, it's just bigger than our lifetime. It's just so much bigger than our lifetimes that we can't even really speculate at it well. But we can look to the past and go, okay, what are things even within the Orthodox lineage that flame in and flare out? What branches die off? And it's more than the Orthodox tradition.
Yeah. And there are a lot of people there are a lot of people who say, "Hey, empires fall. That's the flow of history. America, you have your run. It's time for that empire to fall too." And that is, boy, be careful what you wish for. That's what I would say. That's what I would say. Be careful what you wish for, because what the world may look like in the absence of American empire is pretty terrifying.
So, do you have stuff to say, Matt?
Oh, just that I like what Nate's pointing at. I think, and not even from just.
And by the way, in case it's not obvious, like deeply challenging all of my own political presuppositions in the process.
I mean, what is the ARC project and those kind of movements? It's right. Saying we like Christianity because we see it as a foundation stone for classical liberalism, for this kind of open society culture that we thought didn't need foundations. And so can we signal back to Christianity in some way?
Right, yeah.
So that because we're really here for the classical liberalism. So how do we get back to that? Jesus, can you just give us classical?
Right, yeah, that's exactly it. That's exactly it. That's precisely right. That's exactly, and that's what's going on with James Lindsay, like maybe above all people, right? It's like, he's rethinking his repenting of his new atheism because it's dawned on him, because he's in it for the project of modernity and the project of liberalism, which he sees the beauty of, and he also sees like the terror of what's coming in its wake if we get rid of it. And the fact that he's focusing on the anti-Semitism issue is not accidental. Like I'll tell you right now that there is no group of people who rightfully have more anxiety about the potential death of liberalism in the West than Jewish people, because liberalism has created the conditions under which Jewish people could be a part of the culture and flourish in a way that is unprecedented. And there is lots of signs that the thing that is getting ready to replace it is absolutely hostile to them. And that is something I'm very personally invested with for reasons that should be pretty obvious. So this is one of the reasons my level of concern is so heightened. And it's like, okay, I need to start talking about politics, and this is why.
Glad you're talking about it.
Me too.
Which is what TLC's really good at is I really think this kind of shaman culture we have here, it's not just about like when we're cozy, we could just hang out in these kind of ambient liminal spaces and demonstrate to others and to ourselves that you could be comfortable in the midst of shifting sands and kind of weird estuary environments. And when it's not cozy, we're actually particularly good at noticing, at like identifying and articulating things on the horizon faster than
yes, but Matt, these illiberal forces that are on the rise are in our spaces. They're in our spaces, and they're not like they are very clever about disguising themselves, and don't often show they don't often show their true face, but they're there. But they're there, and I'm deeply concerned about it.
And you got to be able to. And what I like about shaman culture is that we're not just merely saying we're aware, we're intensely aware 24/7 of the liberal gaze. That's a term that they'll understand. And so we're just signaling to that ambient liberal gaze that we don't like people to the right of us, so to speak, as defined by that liberal gaze. They define who people to the right of us is, and we have to publicly shun them. We're not doing. That's what people inside city walls do. People that wear like, wire hair, sheepskin, and eat insects in the desert don't act like that. If they identify something, it's not for gain within the city, right?
Right,
so,
right.
I think we can. I trust this kind of environment because we can see stuff on the horizon.
Yeah, I will say that because that's good. That's good, Matt, because it's like I'm just being honest. Like I am not James Lindsay. I'm not James Lindsay, right? I don't think that modernism and liberalism are all the good that's ever been and that they'd have to be preserved at any cost. I don't think that. I just think that we don't know what's coming after them, and to rush headlong into the great replacement is
just
not a good idea.
Because we're not reactionaries here.
Right.
We don't just say, I'm going to do the opposite because you told me to do X, I'm going to do Y.
Right. Right. Exactly.
They say, are you for me or against me? The answer is no.
Well, so much of it is driven by doing the opposite, right? So it's like, okay, I hate wokeism, so I'm gonna make anti-Semitism cool again. Like, okay, like.
So here is my final word, and then I want to give everybody else a final word, and then we're gonna shut it down. What's gonna happen when James Lindsay and Jordan Peterson, because this is big for Jordan Peterson, which is why he probably doesn't understand Job or certain aspects, and all of us realize that Christianity cannot be used in a utilitarian way, and what it really involves is a laying down of your will.
Yeah.
Then what? I don't think you're gonna like it then.
Yeah. At some point, Jesus says, "I'm not feeding you anymore. You're gonna have to eat me or nothing." Yeah. Sorry. Right. You're still coming here for handouts, for public, for some kind of idea that I'm going to, fix society for you. You're going to have to eat me.
And now, like
those are hard truths. Who can stick around? Which disciples are going to stick around? Most of them are going to walk away frustrated.
Matt. If you're interested, I've been trying to put together a talk on a kind of modest defense of liberalism for a while now. Shoot me an email if you're interested.
And Nate's and he's struggling mightily.
Just a modest one.
So long as
yeah, it has to be a modest defense coming from me, because there's a way in which, like, as a Christian anarchist, I'm also not a liberal, right?
No.
But I'm a different sort of not a liberal that can see the advantage of liberalism versus a lot of the alternatives that are being proposed.
You have to be a shaman with it, though, which you are very good at. So, yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah.
All right.
I'm just saying, if I have a choice between living under liberalism or Catholic integralist state, it's going to be liberalism 100% of the time.
Really?
Yeah, really.
Okay, things are changing. That's what a shaman can do. A shaman can say, I changed my mind. Sorry. It's Thursday. I have a different story now.
No, I think that's always been my story. Although I have certain like overlapping sympathies with some of the way that Catholic integralists would see the world, I think they come to the wrong conclusions. Because I've always thought the state is the beast. And I don't think that wedding the state to the church is a good idea because the state is inevitably the beast. The church is something else entirely. It's not something that's designed to be wedded to the state.
Yeah,
So.
people need to read Samuel. Like even
Right,
asking
exactly. Yeah. Right. Yes.
No Old Testament here. Just
like
Paul.
you did a very good job in Samuel.
Yeah. Yeah.
Jess, close us out while I
don't even know what
brush
liberalism
this
is.
away.
Yeah,
Good.
who does?
Good. Oh. Also, listen,
Sure,
no one go to Grail Country or the Grail Country Discord because it's full of mean people.
Oh, text chat. Avoid text chat. Just go to voice chat.
Yeah.
Hey,
all right.
let's. There are still good people on the Girl Country Discord too, though. There are still good people on the Girl Country Discord, and I will try to be more active. Yeah, I've just put some of them are notable offenders of being mean. I've just put on ignore. So,
Nate, just here you go. What's this reference from? I was just funning.
What? I don't know.
Come on.
I'm sorry. I'm failing.
Tombstone.
Oh yeah, right. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I actually just watched it again recently too.
It's a great one.
On my birthday, we watched the Cowboys, John Wayne's The Cowboys, and then we played Aces and Eights, and then we watched Tombstone afterwards.
What's that?
Westerns.
This is just like the stupid Western masculine in me, and it's a great mustache. When what's his name? When he, I forget the actor's name, but when he slaps him, I can't remember what he says, but he's just like, he says like, "You gonna pull that heater or just stand there and bleed?" Just like after he just slaps him. I'm just like, oh Lord.
Yeah.
Something Huckleberry. All right.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
On
rest in peace, Val Kilmer.
I'm glad you're back, Luke.
Yeah, good to have you back.
This felt like people were able to come in and play. This felt like I feel like that's my place in the corner, is to be. I like to create spaces for people to talk about intellectual things, but it's got to be. This is what somebody asked, like when I was going to talk to Jordan Hall, and I was just like, I don't like, unless Jordan Hall can be a silly boy with me, I don't think I want to.
Did you see Jordan Hall talking about D&D for like the first 20 minutes of the stream, making Sherry listen to us talk about D&D?
No, listen, I'm a dork, but I'm not that much of a dork. Good. D&D.
I'm not a nerd.
That's right. I'm a very peculiar kind of dork.
I am a multifaceted dork.
Yeah, you are.
I'm the kind of dork that plays D&D, but also the kind of dork who was an early adopter of the printed version of Mel Kiper's Draft Guide. So
yes, that's true.
Because in my generation, nerds still liked sports.
Yeah.
As hard as that might be to fathom for the younger generation, nerds still like sports.
Because otherwise, you'd get the.
Who do you think they
get the fatherly gaze that you're being gay?
You just found the nerdiest way to like sports by.
Right, exactly. Who do you think they print the stats for?
Yeah.
All right, thank you, gentlemen. Love you all. Until next time, peace.
See you guys.
All right.